We are Melungeon. We are Melungeon.
Hello and welcome everyone to episode 4 of season 6 of the Melungeon Voices podcast. We have with us today Marvin Jones, documentary photographer and the founder of the Chowan Discovery Group. We will be discussing the mixed community of the Winton Triangle and Marvin's ancestors of mixed ancestry who fought in the American Revolution. As always, I am Heather Angelina, the president of the Melungeon Heritage Association, and with me, my co-host, Brooke Gibbons. Hey, Brooke.
Hi, Heather. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Did you have a good Happy New Year?
I did. It was very peaceful. A whole lot of nothing.
That's the way, yeah, ringing in the new year with peace is very good. It's like, I know, we were actually, ours was a little crazy. We went up to Carowinds, the amusement park here outside of Charlotte, and rung in the new year there. So
That's
it was
fun.
very nice, but very cold.
Oh, yeah. It was cold. Yeah.
And what about you, Marvin? How was your new year?
Oh, pretty well. We've been keeping it quiet for years. There's a show of old radio of old broadcast from New Year's Eve that we listen to every year, and it's produced by aired by American University in Washington D.C. It's called Hot Jazz New Year's Eve, and
Oh,
Oh,
so
wow.
and so we don't use the television. We listen to the radio and dance and have a drink and whatever. You know, they they'll even play Guy Lombardo if the two of you youngsters remember Guy Lombardo, who was a fixture every New Year's Eve,
Oh, wow.
oh.
That's
playing
so
old
cool.
lang, playing old lang syne with his withering saxophones.
I love that.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. So I'm going to get right into it. For our viewers and listeners, Marvin. Now, back in 2024 at the MHA conference in Hillsborough, you did a presentation on the Winton Triangle, which was a wonderful presentation, and you had an exhibit. Now, where is the Winton Triangle, and can you tell me a little more about it?
The Winton Triangle is the home I grew up in northeastern North Carolina. It is in Hertford County. Sometimes I talk about the Winton Triangle area, which would also include a few surrounding counties. And it's about an hour and 15 minutes from Norfolk, Virginia. And also, it's not that far away from the Great Dismal Swamp, which has always had some influence in our history going way back.
Wow. Marvin, how close is Winton Triangle to all the action that was happening during the Revolutionary War?
We had no actions. However, Cornwallis probably passed west of us um, through Halifax County on the way to his fate in Yorktown. We had a lot of soldiers who enlisted, and also others who served as wagoners or laborers, such as I suspect two of my ancestors. But we had a lot of men, mixed race men from my community who enlisted um, in fighting Cornwallis, or at
Eh,
least harassing him as he was on his way to Yorktown.
That's right. And Marvin, who were your ancestors who served in the American Revolution, and what were their lives like before, during, and after the war?
In Gates County, which is across from the Chowan River from Hertford County, was James Robbins. And James Robbins was from a Chowanoke family. And the Chowanokes were the original people of Hertford County and the dominant and the dominant nation on the Chowan River. When the English first came to North Carolina in 1585, they discovered that the Chowanokes were the largest nation in eastern North Carolina in the areas that they explored. And they encountered or intruded on the Chowanokes in 1586. And so James Robbins was descended from the Chowanoke people. And his great grandfather, John Robbins, first appears in the records in 1733.
Marvin, tell us
And
more about their descendants.
um, we'll get to the other line after I finish James Robbins, of
Yeah,
course.
sorry.
The Robbins family is fairly well documented. It's probably one of the best documented indigenous families in North Carolina when you want to go way back. Um, James shows up in the 1790 census with a white wife, a group of children. He also shows up with the same in the 1800 census, and then his family starts dwindling in 1810, but he still had children around him. He was probably a widower by then. Um, and the Robbinses had actually dwindled in number because of the 1676 Chowan River War, where the English wanted to eliminate the Chowanokes, who were in the way of them expanding between Suffolk, Virginia, and Edenton, North Carolina. That area is now called Virginia and North Carolina Highway 32. And they may have used the Great Dismal Swamp as refuge and ambush during that war. Well, they lost the war, and I think they were reduced in number. But by the time James came along, they began growing in number again. And so his descendants, some moved into Norfolk, some moved further out west to Indiana and Ohio. The ones that stayed, I know best, and uh, his grandsons. There was Noah, and there was John, two of his grandsons. Their children played a role in the Civil War. They also lived. They also had to endure the Nat Turner Rebellion. The oldest document in my family is from 1831, and that was the document Noah Robbins Sr. had to have certifying that he was a free man of color, a native of Gates County, and that he was entitled to what few rights a free person of color was entitled to. And this document was dated 4 days after the Nat Turner Rebellion. There was a tremendous backlash to the rebellion against slavery, this rebellion against slavery. And I'm the sixth member of the family to have this document. Noah had a wife and a 3-year-old son, Noah Jr. And of course, he had to be very concerned about his life, the life of his family and his immediate family. And he had siblings and cousins around him as well. Ironically, Noah Jr. and a much younger brother, Andrew Jackson Robbins, my great grandfather, they both served in the United States Army during the Civil War, and their first duty was to dig fortifications, build dirt fortifications at the end of Charleston Harbor in April of 1864 to destroy Charleston, which was essentially the capital of American slavery. And so they were not only avenging the rights that avenging themselves, but they were also avenging Nat Turner. A few years after the Nat Turner Rebellion, North Carolina voted to take away voting rights from free people of color. And the Robbins family moved into Jack after the war. Jack, Noah Sr.'s younger son, moved into Hertford County. He bought a farm, and I was born on it, and we still have it.
Oh,
And
that's incredible.
I'm there about every month on the farm, doing what you're supposed to do on the farm.
Yeah, that is incredible. All right, tell us more about their descendants.
Um, Noah Sr. had a brother, John, and John had two sons, Parker and Augustus Robbins. So they're Noah Jr. and Andrew Jackson Robbins' first cousins. Parker and Augustus, they enlisted in the Second Cavalry in the war a few months before their cousins, Noah Jr. and Jack Robbins. And the Second Cavalry served, was present when Richmond fell. They also served in Texas at the time of Juneteenth. So they're Juneteenth soldiers. Both brothers, Parker and Augustus, served in the North Carolina legislature. I have a North Carolina historical marker for Parker Robbins, who did some of everything. He was a farmer, a mechanic, a postmaster, a home builder, a holder of 2 U.S. patents, um, house, a builder of homes, a sawmill owner, and a steamship builder and owner, where he would transport lumber and timber on the Cape Fear River. So he did some of everything. Later this year, we're getting a William G. Pomeroy marker for his brother Augustus, who also served in the legislature. And Augustus was a quartermaster sergeant. Parker was a sergeant major, which is the highest rank that a person of color that could get during the war if they were not a physician, and there were very few physicians. And so Augustus is getting a marker, and he also was an elected official, business person, carpenter, and a postmaster, like his brother Parker. And so we're erecting that marker at Augustus's grave in Bertie County, which is south of Hertford County. And so that's my long thumbnail on the Robbins family.
Wow, that is some history. That is and you've done a lot of historical markers. You have quite a
Yes,
few. Yeah.
by the
Yeah.
end of the by probably by July 4th, we will have 19 historical markers up in eastern North Carolina, right, spanning from Raleigh to the Outer Banks.
That is incredible. That is awesome. That's so
That's a
awesome,
lot of
Marvin.
hole. That's a lot of pole digging. That's a
Yes,
lot of
it
holes to put in the ground.
is. Yes, it is. So, Marvin, why do you think there is so little information about your Revolutionary War ancestors, who were of mixed ancestry and free people of color, like the Melungeon people?
Um, there was less literacy, I believe, at the time of the Civil War for people of color that there even was for um, the Civil War. Let me repeat, there was less literacy at the time of the Revolutionary War than there was during the Civil War. There were also less people. Also, in 1830 and in 1862, our courthouse was burned in Winton, our county seat. In 1830, the burning was criminal. In 1862, U.S. forces burned Winton, and in burning because of resistance to a Navy gunboat that was on the Chowan River. And so, in the burning of Winton, the courthouse and the records were burned. a lot of people, we were taught that the burning of Winton was a bad thing, but every time U.S. forces showed up during the Civil War, that's when people could escape, and you didn't have to. Even free people wanted to escape because rebel forces were always bullying you. They were always seizing your produce, your livestock, and your labor. A lot of free people were forced to work on fortifications and carry supplies for a cause that was very much against them. So, in a way, they were enslaved for periods of time, and of course, their livelihoods were taken away from them. I have a letter. Um, I have a. I found an interview that one of our soldiers, Edwin Sears, who wrote about escaping because they were looking for him. Rebels were looking for him, and I'm sure they were looking for him because they wanted him to do work for them for free. And so he and his cousins escaped down the Chowan River. Edwin Sears' one of his daughters was my third grade teacher. I mean, all this was surprising. Yeah, well, surprising to find out. And that's not the only example of people escaping on the Chowan River and reaching Navy gunboats. Now, going back to the Civil War, um, you had people in the Norfolk area. You had enslaved people in the Norfolk area who were escaping to Lord Dunmore, because he offered freedom if you fought against the American rebels. And so, and those that survived went to Nova Scotia. They even went to, I think, Trinidad as well. Um, um, they did not remain in the United States. And I've been to the site where they lost the battle called Great Bridge, and uh, which is in Chesapeake, Virginia, which is next to Virginia Beach and Norfolk and whatever and whatever. But going back, again, I just think there was less literacy, and the courthouse burned twice. A lot of these soldiers did receive land, those that enlisted. Now, James, he just received a payment of like £6. And I have that document, to share.
You want to share
Do I
your
share
screen?
this?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the document. James Robbins.
Wow.
It's fuzzy. It's April 1862. So this is about 6 months after the victory at Yorktown.
Oh, wow.
But it doesn't specify a regiment. It's just, and it doesn't say much about, it says Edenton, there's a hole punched in it, this black hole. The Edenton military district, I suppose. It doesn't say much about his service. And I'm assuming, again, he is more or less doing labor, and he's not in uniform. Whereas we had other men of color who enlisted, they were probably in uniform, or maybe not even in uniform, because um, I think a great deal of American soldiers in the Civil War didn't have uniforms. There wasn't the funding for it.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they had the records. Moving on, there are other records. Jesse Weaver, another descendant of mine, spelled Jefe. Jesse Weaver was another ancestor who served like James, and he served. Um, I'm not even. It's still in the same district in Edenton, and this payment was in December of 1863. So this is 2 years after Georgetown. This is after the signing of the Treaty of Paris. where hostilities totally stopped. There were other soldiers, Simon Shoecraft. There was Richard Nickens, and connected to the Weaver families. The Weavers are widespread in the Winton Triangle area. Um, Moving on, of course, here's the one for James Robbins again. Um, Malachi Nickens and John Weaver of Hertford County were soldiers. Uh, Edward Weaver, and by the way, Edward Weaver shows up in the Civil War, and he died of dysentery. You have a lot of heads. You had a lot of heads of Hertford County in Hertford County who served. Evans Archer, I've long known about him. And the Archers are old free family in Hertford County. And again, a soldier born in Hertford County. And his description of 4 foot and a quarter, 4 foot, 5 foot 4 inches and a quarter high, yellow complexion, 25 years old. Um, John Weaver enlisted. The Weavers came from Virginia. You have a Weaver who came from Virginia, but he ends up in Hertford County with a family of 5. Um, Caleb Archer, another Archer. You have Ezekiel Archer. Evans Archer is mentioned again in this list. And the Bazelles, you had Bazelles in the Civil War. You had Bazelle descendants, and so here's David Bazelle as well. Enos Bazelle. You had Boones. Um, William Brown. I don't know much. I don't know. Yeah, William Brown. We had at least one Brown among our soldiers in the Civil War. So you had these people who served in the American Revolution on the American side, and then they had descendants who served in the Civil War, seeking freedom all the time. And then some of their descendants were um, involved in civil rights. I know 2 of our civil rights leaders were descended from Jesse Weaver.
Wow.
And my father, who's descended from Jesse Weaver, he supported the civil rights movement in Hertford County. The Manleys, Mark Manley.
I see a lot of Melungeon surnames. Yeah.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Also, their descendants helped found some of our institutions like Pleasant Plains Church, founded in 1851. They built the first schoolhouse, Pleasant Plains Schoolhouse, in 1866, but the schoolhouse apparently existed in the 1850s. And because of their early start, Pleasant Plains people out of the Winton Triangle, were among the first to go to college, and they were first to and they spread out in the area to teach at other schools. They took education to a higher level because they had attended either Hampton Normal, or now Hampton University in Virginia, or Shaw University in Raleigh. And so they helped expand education after the Civil War. They also expanded in land ownership because you had a lot of wealthy landowners who had no money, but these soldiers had pensions. And I mean, they had bonuses, and because they were free and had families backing them, they were able to buy farms and use the bonuses to buy land and what it was to get a farm started. And of course, they probably had the cooperation of their family members and neighbors. And so land ownership expanded after the Civil War. And you also had some of these enlisted soldiers who received land as well. Um, and that may show up. Oh, here's Edward Nickens. Um, he was played before the North Carolina General Assembly of for 460 acres, issued to the heirs in 1797 for his service as a private in the Revolution. Um, and so on. Richard Nickens, heir, sold his right to the warrant, which for $500. So he may have used it for something. He may have used it to buy another piece of land or whatever. Um, and so these soldiers received land as well. If you were you were likely to receive land if you were a soldier. By the way, some of these lands may have been confiscated from loyalists. It's like, where did the land come from? Who owned it beforehand? So maybe it belonged to loyalists before then. I hadn't thought about that. Talking with
Yeah.
talking with
Maybe.
you is discovery here. I never
Yeah.
talked about what we're seeing here. I never talked about it
Yeah.
before.
Putting all the
I,
pieces together.
I'm too busy poring over where we do have a whole lot of a whole lot of documents. Um, what other names we got? David Pugh. Um, he was bound to be a Cooper. That's like another form of enslavement. But if you're lucky, you might come out with a skill and a relationship to the person that bound you. He was a saddler, so he knew something about leather, working with leather and building saddles as well. Um, Jacob Reed. Jacob Reed was a soldier on the company of new levies on the Continental establishment when he marched from Hertford County to South Carolina from November 1778 to 1797. He died in service in South Carolina. There was a lot of fighting in South Carolina. South Carolina was vicious. March 19, he died, let's see, in March 1779, he died before the Battle of Savannah. And I pay a Savannah attention because one of my documentary projects was Haiti, and you had Haitians who fought in Savannah as part of a French force that was allied with the Americans in Savannah. And some of those soldiers became leaders of the Haitian Revolution. I spent 11 nights sleeping near the grave of one of them and doing my documentary work. And in a huge fort on a mountaintop that he had built, Henry Christophe. So Jacob Reed died in service in South Carolina before that battle. Um, James Reed received the military land grant of 274 acres for his service in the Revolution, and so on.
There's so much.
Yeah.
That's great.
So it's
I
not just my
know,
descendants;
yeah.
it's their neighbors as well.
Wow.
These people knew each other. They all knew each
Mhm.
other. They're all in the same boat, being free people of color. They all know about land ownership, and they all knew each other. By this time, many of them were related to each other as well.
Mhm. Yep.
So,
This is
Wow.
great. This a lot of
Yeah.
information. Great. Well, Marvin, do you want to talk to us about the research that is being made by the Society of the First African Families of English America called the Forgotten Patriots Project?
yes, I haven't been following it that well because there's only one document for Jesse Weaver, one document for James Weaver, but they have released their report on the Northern Theater, and they plan to release their report. It's made of a lot of volunteers, a lot of genealogists, and a lot of these genealogists are descendants of soldiers of color of the Civil War. Um, and I hear from them every month. I know the director of the project, Rick Murphy, and Rick Murphy is a Winton Triangle descendant also. And so um, I assume sometime later this year, the Southern Theater report will be released and published. But this is a group of genealogists in the North and in the South who are compiling information similar to what I've just shown you. Not just this comes from a website called Free African Americans. That's what I'm showing here. It's compiled by Paul Heinig, who is respected among us for his research. And
Yes.
and right, the great Paul Heinig, and um, and I know him, and I know his daughter, and in fact, his daughter may be related to the Robinses in Gates County. There seems to be some possible evidence, and so they're looking at other records as well and um, compiling a history so that we are not forgotten. Our ancestors' contributions to the American Revolution are not forgotten. I'm glad that Ken Burns's documentary includes people of color and um, and the complexity of issues that they had to deal with, whether they were indigenous, whether they were just free, whether they were enslaved, whether they fought for loyalists or whether they fought for rebels. Um, he even included uh, a memory of a fellow who was a free boy in Philadelphia, and George Washington, who probably didn't want the knowledge that a person of color could be free, wanted him to do some task, and he asked Washington how much would he be paid, and Washington was indignant and moved on. To have for this black boy to have the temerity to ask for money. Washington was a kind of slave owner, like so many, that believed that black people shouldn't have wives, they shouldn't have control of their children, and they shouldn't even have money uh, at all. And so this fellow said he never forgot Washington for his behavior to him for that.
That is so interesting. And I have seen the Ken Burns. Yeah, and it's fantastic. And that's also why, like with this podcast season, why we wanted to highlight free people of color and people of mixed ancestry. Because you're right, Marvin, so little is shared about it.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you all are doing this, Marvin, you and the other genealogical groups, because, you made the point, like places burned down. There's only paper records. There's no digital records of this until now, and you all are doing it. So, it's kind of like use it or lose it. If we don't get this stuff uploaded and saved and archived, then future generations are never going to know because all this stuff's going to go away.
And I want to say a kind word about this podcast. Um, on Friday, I belong to a group called the Alliance to Preserve Civil War Defenses of Washington. I'm a board member, and we have an annual program in July about that commemorates the only Civil War battle in Washington, D.C., the Battle of Fort Stevens. And I live only about a mile from the fort, which has been preserved. I drive past it frequently. And I was telling a former president so much of what I've just told you. And I don't think she had been listening to me all these years. But we were doing a presentation to fifth graders on Friday about the Civil War. And I'm head of that project in DC Public Schools. And so it finally hit her how deep my family is in our part of American history, going from 1586 through the American Revolution, through the Civil War. And she suggested that I be the keynote speaker for the next Fort Stevens Day, which draws a lot of people, has a lot of reenactors because they want to tie the American Revolution to the Civil War. And so, as a Revolutionary War descendant, and having the research, I'm going to see about I decided, yes, I want to be the keynote speaker because I have quite a bit to say that would not get said elsewhere. Um, and I would tie a lot of my experience of my family's long history in Osamokamuk, which was the name of the Algonquin part of North Carolina when the English arrived 2 years before the lost colony.
Oh,
Osamokamuk.
wow.
So, I mean, the English knew my people before the lost colony arrived. Um, my Chowan ancestors, they know what happened to the lost colony. They didn't pass it down. And when the lost colony, when I was dedicating my first marker to the Chowan people, I looked at the 1585 map that John White had drawn of the area they had explored. It's a famous map. I saw a patch at the end of the Chowan River where the Chowan River, the Roanoke River, and the Albemarle Sound meet. And I noticed for the first time I really paid attention to this patch on this map. I said, why is that patch there? And I said, that patch is exactly where there ought to be a Chowanoke or Moretuck town because it's at the end of it's where two rivers meet a sound. It's like, how can you imagine that there not be a city on the island of Manhattan where the East River, the Hudson, and the Atlantic meet, Long Island Sound? There has to be towns there, right? The same thing. How can Norfolk not exist at the James River and the Chesapeake, right? How can that not be? So I said, there's a town under that map. Around the same time, the first colony foundation, which explores the exploration of North Carolina, they got the same idea. The map is at the British Museum. So they asked the British Museum folks to place the map on a light box to see what's under that map, and they saw the outline of a fort. But I said, there is no fort there. I said, you had the Chowanoks, the Tuscaroras, the Moretucks, the Roanokes. They're not going to let 117 poorly supplied people from the lost colony build a fort there. But they probably went there because they had been there. The early expedition had been there a year earlier. So First Colony Foundation did dig in suspected areas, and they found Elizabethan artifacts from that town that probably did belong to the lost colony, but no evidence of a fort. Well, the president of the First Colony Foundation attended the Melungeon Conference in Hillsborough.
Wow.
He attended because I was speaking. I was your first speaker.
Yes.
And I had been I'm sorry I didn't introduce him. You were busy. And
Yes.
you were busy. And he came because I was speaking because I had been on a Roanoke Island dig with him. And so we had a lively conversation in the lobby where your conference was being held. And I have a photograph of the two of you near each other that my wife took while I was speaking. So,
I had no idea.
uh,
That's
uh,
funny.
I'm glad I'm able to share this with you.
No, that is amazing, Marvin. Oh man. Uh,
But he came because he said, He said, unlike other folks, I appear to know what I'm talking about. And so he lived in the area and he wanted to hear me speak and talk about, and he wanted to hear me present. He never heard me present before.
That is awesome. Now, and did he see your exhibit too? Did he
Yes, he saw the
also,
exhibit. He
oh,
saw the exhibit.
fantastic.
Also, the exhibit is opening up and running for 6 months and at the Museum of the Albemarle in Elizabeth City in September.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, we'll make sure to put that like in the notes and so people,
So,
yeah.
so your hosting the exhibit was the first time we took it out of Hertford County.
Really?
Yeah, the first time we took it out of Hertford County. The exhibit is designed to fit in the trunk of my car and back seat, which it did. We took it to Hillsborough. It comes with easels because in Hertford County, we have no exhibit space. People do not go to exhibits. And so we had to put them in church fellowship halls. We put it in um, my high school's Rosenwald Auditorium building, which was also in the exhibit. We even had it under an overhang at a Juneteenth program outdoors, but it was in an overhang. Um, the community college gymnasium. And the
That's,
nice thing about having it for 6 months at the museum of the Albemarle is that we don't have to bring the easels. We don't
oh,
have to set them
nice.
up. We just give it to them and they just set it up for us.
That's nice.
That's nice.
Well, speaking of the exhibit, Marvin, I'd like you to share with us information on your organization, the Chowan Discovery Group. What inspired you to start this organization, and how can our viewers and listeners learn more about it and support the Chowan Discovery Group?
The Chowan Discovery Group, that's our pronunciation, Chowan.
Chowan.
I need to put a little straight arrow, a little straight line over the Cho. And, and it was founded in 2008. I'm a documentary photographer, and I had projects where I did research, and I wanted to do research about what I was photographing. And I found my community. I lived there till I was 18. I went off to college, or worked like so many others, but I kept coming back home religiously. And I always found my community interesting. Uh, we had a lot of businesses, we had a lot of land ownership, we had a lot of stories passed down. I listened to a lot of the elders, and some of them were very capable. They were leaders. My father was a store owner, and a lot of people came to him. A lot of people came through the store. I went to two different high schools, so I experienced my county in a wide sense. And the more I thought about my area, uh, I wanted to know more. I wanted to know what was our role in the Civil War. And all I knew was that the Navy and soldiers burned our town down. That's all I knew. But I found out so much more. I found out that a woman in our family, she married into our family, the Weaver family. Well, she was married a Weaver descendant. She was used to lure a Navy gunboat to shore Winton so it could be fired upon. And so this lady was almost caught between two sets of cannons, but the commander sailed away, came back the next day with some friends, and Winton was burned. But her story was never told, and research showed out that she was a married mother, a free woman, a married mother of three. The rebels said they paid her to be on the wharf. They might have paid her, but let's face it, they forced her to be on the wharf, to be caught potential to be caught between two sets of gunfire. And so her father-in-law was a founder of my church. Her brother-in-law served in the military a year and a half later. Her daughter, 7 years after that ugly day, is a student at Hampton University. A year after that, she's teaching in Winton. Her daughter is teaching at Winton. So you get to see how after I got to appreciate how the victory in the Civil War provided us with so many opportunities in land ownership and education and business. We couldn't have stores before. There were 9 Joneses who had stores in the Winton Triangle at various times. My father had a store for 32 years. I worked in it for 6 years. And of course, I waited on customers, swept the floor, put in stock, burned boxes, that the stuff came in like evaporated milk and whatever. Waited, weighed fresh chickens, priced them, wrapped them, and put them in the bag for customers. If you wanted a quarter pound of cheese, I'd cut it for you. If you wanted 10 cents of bologna to make a sandwich, I'd cut that bologna for you and weigh it and price it, right? So it was a great experience. And of course, you had all these neat people coming through the store. You had loggers. So we had a lot of Joneses were loggers. And then there was the work on the farm itself. So whenever I saw my mother sitting in the living room holding a Bible, I would leave the house because I knew she'd use it against me. And I was a nice boy.
That's so great.
So I'm getting away from the core part of the question. So in 2008, with the help of my sister, who at that time was a corporate lawyer in New York, again, we really made good use of what we were given, what we earned after the war. We founded Chowan Discovery Group to research, document, preserve, and present mainly the history of the Winton Triangle. I had already written an article about the 5 centuries of the Robbins family, and I wanted to. I started scanning photographs. First, I scanned everything in our house. I scanned everything my aunts had, and then other people started letting me scan photographs and documents. And it was scanning cousins' documents that I came across the 1831 Nat Turner related document. By that time, I knew what that document was about. And my cousin who was my who had 2 sons and four grown grandchildren, she decided I was the one to have that document as well as other Robbins family documents because I would know what to do with it. And then we produced a stage production the following year, not long after we founded Chowan Discovery, and that was to tell the community the story of the Winton Triangle. We had 38 people on stage, including the Chowan Nation's drummers and dancers. We had high school students acting out skits, and we had 2 church choirs, and that worked out very well. That was at our local um, community theater. And not long after that was the Chowan marker, our first marker. And then Paul Johnson, our dear friend Paul Johnson, he attended the stage production. That's where I met Paul.
Oh.
He had heard about what I was doing. We had been in touch. He came to the stage production. He invited me to the Melungeon Heritage Association conference in 2009, a few months after the stage production. I gave a talk. It was in West Virginia at the Chief Logan Hotel or something like that in Logan, West Virginia. I met Arwen Smallwood as well, who I knew about, and I've been friends with Arwen as well as Paul ever since. And at that conference, Scott Withrow asked me to contribute to the book Carolina Genesis. So I took the stage production script and converted it to the essay. And I used that book to promote what the Winton Triangle was doing. So now we have two products. We have the Chowan marker, which was quickly followed by two other markers for Parker David Robbins, who's one of my Civil War relatives I spoke of earlier, and for another leader a publisher who came out of the Winton Triangle and had a national newspaper, Robert Lee Vann. So in short order, we had four things we could talk about, five things: a stage production, three markers, and the Carolina Genesis essay, and we just kept building on that. So now we have quite a few writings. We have a lot of markers, a lot of lectures, four videos of Washington, D.C., African American history, um, interviews like this, podcast. Oh God. Um, I know I'm forgetting awards. I know I'm forgetting stuff. It's all on the website at chawandiscovery.org. That's a long answer.
No, it was
It's okay.
good.
Yeah, that's a good answer. That's a good answer. Well, Marvin, you stay so busy and you've contributed so much. I mean, you're a photographer, you're a writer, you're a historian, you're so many things. And you've contributed so much to American history, that part of American history that we don't normally hear about. Is there anything else that you want to share with what you've got going on?
Um, I write grants, and I've been successful for the most part. We have received 16 grants so far. Now, some of that is fudging because 8 of them are William G. Pomeroy grants to get markers. They were not as hard as the regular grants that we know, but still, that's a lot of grants.
Yes.
Um, I've I've led the writing of two grants for the Alliance to Preserve the Civil War Defenses, and our second grant is to take Washington, D.C.'s Civil War history into D.C. public schools. That grant was very challenging, and it wasn't until Howard University, the chair of our education committee, Dr. Carol Livia Heron, who teaches at Howard University, teaches classics. She turned the key that got us the tie-in with DC Public Schools for us to go in and do these 40-minute presentations with reenactors, women and men, in schools. And leave it to a woman who wears a cape to save the day. and so yesterday was our last class. We had two classes at one school. The grant was to do 16 classes. We ended up doing 22. And we also bring a trunk. We have a small trunk with two wheels at the bottom, thank goodness. And there are United States Army jackets and caps for the kids to wear briefly, and they go crazy when they see that. When they can put on a United States Army cap and a jacket and button it up and pose with it with their teacher or us or whatever. Um, and I'm glad the program is wrapping up because my next project is to begin digitizing the work I've done for Howard University for over 20 years of black and white photography for Howard University. And Howard's very historic. It's a product of the Civil War. It's a product of freedoms expanding. It's a product of Union Army leaders working with the community to expand education in America during and after the war. And at Fort Stevens, just up the road from me, a school was founded with that same cooperation. And the reenactor I brought yesterday is a graduate of the military road school that was established at Fort Stevens. So you got all these wonderful tie-ins to what I've been able to do. Um, uh, and I'm really looking forward. I'm working on after you and I finish, I will start putting away on this grant application. I haven't touched it in 4 days, but it's time to start finalizing sections of it. There's been written, but it needs to be finalized, and I need to call in all my friends. Are supposed to send me support letters. Where are those support letters?
Do you want one from us?
You were on my list. You were on my list, but I decided I only needed 5.
Okay.
And I needed those 5 to have Washington D.C. area addresses. Because
okay.
the grantor is the Humanities D.C.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so if it was what, don't worry, you remain on my list.
Okay. I got you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Marvin, this has just been wonderful. Just, so much amazing information. I just want to say it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. And thank you so much for being in our podcast.
Well, this has turned out far better than I expected.
No, this was great. This was fantastic. Now, next month, you might find this interesting. So we're going to be interviewing Dr. Latanya Bowman and Dr. Kirsten Priest. They're going to be discussing the free people of color who were the Jamestown Freedom Pioneers.
New news to me.
Yeah, and specific concentration on the Fuller, Pettiford, and Weaver families.
Weaver. Okay.
Yes.
And what location are we talking about?
It's actually Jamestown, North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to be talking to both of them next month. And the American Revolution, the significant contributions that the Jamestown Freedom Pioneers were to the American Revolution and the Underground Railroad.
Okay, great.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
Very
I'm
excited.
looking forward to it. This is new information. I love new information.
Awesome. We also want to thank the VA 250 Commission and the Virginia Humanities for the grants that made this podcast season possible. And yes. And of course, thank you again, Marvin, and thank you, Brooke. And we'll see everyone next month.
All right. Thank you. And good to meet you, Brooke.
Oh, good. Great to meet you, Marvin. This was wonderful. Thank you.
And as we said, Chowan Discovery, more to come.
That's right.
Absolutely. Perfectly said.
We've traveled very far. Where we've been is who we are. We are standing proud and strong. We'll use our strength to carry on. We are Melungeon. We are Melungeon. Our voices shouting our stories of our defeats and victories. We're unified, we stand as one. Diversified nation that is finally home. We are